Dogs possess an incredible sense of smell. We know that. They can even be trained to sniff out diseases. So what about using them to detect COVID-19 in humans? That is the focus of a new study. And joining us to talk about it is the director of the Working Dog Center at the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine, Dr. Cindy Otto. Dr. Otto, thanks for being with us. And yes, we've heard about dogs helping detect things like cancer and malaria. But how does it actually work? How do they do it?
So that's a great question. And what we know is that diseases have an odor. And sometimes it's actually the disease agent itself, and sometimes it's the body's response to the disease, and sometimes it's a combination. And we often don't know what it is, but a person with a specific disease actually has a unique odor that we are able to train dogs to recognize.
That is remarkable. So tell us about the study you're spearheading specifically on COVID-19.
So step number one, just can the dog test and tell us that there is an odor associated with that? Step number two, can they tell if a person actually is carrying that odor? Not that they're sick, but they're actually carrying the odor. And then finally, what we would think about is, can we take this to what we would call an operational setting, where we would be able to use the dogs as an adjunct screening tool if patients or if individuals are positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, Dr. Otto, we're seeing the video of dogs walking around what looks like vials of perhaps different odors. Can you walk us through how you train them to sniff for something specific?
Absolutely. So the way we do it is we take a sample, and in this case, and in many of our other cases, we take a sample from the diseased patient. So we have a sample from that patient. In our ovarian cancer, it's a blood sample. With the COVID-19, we're looking at whether or not it's going to be the best sample will be urine or saliva or breath or sweat or something else. And what we do is we have the dog sniff a container that contains that sample. And the odor is in a container that doesn't allow the dog to actually have contact with that biological sample. When they sniff, suddenly they get a treat.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so we do that a couple of times, and then they start to go, hey, I sniffed this, I get a treat. I can do that. But then we show them a sample from somebody who doesn't have the disease, and they don't get a treat. And then the wheels start to turn, and they go, oh, there's something different about this sample. So I'm going to look for that thing that's different, and then I get a treat. And so as we introduce more and more samples, they start to realize, oh, all of the samples that I get a treat for have this odor, this common signature, where the other ones don't. And that's how we start to train the dog. So we don't actually know what the odor is, but the dogs can figure it out.
Wow, it is fascinating. So all of that said, how accurate do you believe fully trained dogs can be on COVID-19?
So on COVID-19, we don't have any data yet, but we know from other diseases is that the dogs can be 85, 90, even 95% accurate. A lot of it depends on the training and the environment and how we deploy them and what kind of environment they're working in. But I think we have a really good opportunity to make a huge difference where this is going to really impact our ability to identify those hopefully asymptomatic carriers.
It really is incredible work. Thank you so much for sharing it with us and for your time today, Dr. Otto. We appreciate it.
Happy to be part of this. Thanks.
They say a dog's nose knows. And at a makeshift lab in Finland's Helsinki airport, researchers from the University of Helsinki are collecting sweaty samples from thousands of arriving passengers to show a dog's nose knows COVID-19, even better than man's best test.
They're, cheaper? Yep. They're quicker? Yep. Possibly as accurate? Possibly even more accurate.
Because they can smell COVID days before a patient develops symptoms.
That, really soft thing you have on your carpet at home, or, that starts barking and wants to have food and go out, that this is actually a super accurate machine.
For years, dogs have sniffed for explosives and drugs, survivors in disasters, even for some cancers. And now, from Bahrain to Russia, across Europe, and in the U.S. at the University of Pennsylvania, they're being trained to find people who are COVID positive. A French study in June found very high evidence that the sweat of COVID positive people has a distinct smell the dogs can detect.
We really need your help and your body odor.
British researchers are now asking for sweaty socks and used masks to test their dog's accuracy.
Well, if dogs are able to do this with high enough accuracy, what we'd be looking at is deploying dogs in areas where we need to screen lots of people very quickly.
By sniffing through your clothes, their first real-world trials this week at a train station in London. But here in Helsinki, they're ahead of the pack, screening passengers like me after a baggage claim. A quick wipe down, hand over your tissues, and the dog goes to work behind a screen, scratching a positive control sample.
Well, that was quick.
But mine?
Negative.
As a backup, a free standard test at the airport with that eye-watering nasal swab, and results in a day or two by text. The dogs take a few days to a few weeks to train, depending on their background and their love of treats. And researchers say one dog can sniff more than 100 samples a day at airports, offices, nursing homes.
I mean, this could save lives. This can save lives, actually, totally. So I think it was kind of a no-brainer for us.
And researchers here are really bullish about this. They say that they need to collect more data. They'll be doing that over the next several weeks. But they think this could be in use at airports really around the world by next year.